lên,
Còn bình
cái
thường mình cầm là hay để này. Kể cả em
here,
khoác vào cổ xong rồi em làm một đêm khoác cổ thì nó cũng vẫn là bên này. Nó rất khó chịu. Nhưng mà khi mà em làm á, em làm để này.
I'm coming up to the breach just above the umbilicus here. See it's a little bladder in the midline there. I've kept my throat perpendicular to the floor.
Còn cái hệ thống máy ngày xưa, cái dây này chỗ này này.
Just as we came
Mấy
through,
cái máy
we
chất
could see
đen
the
ngày xưa
fetal
bên
heart
tự sản.
there.
Làm thì nó không dính vào đây. Còn
If
bây
we
giờ nó
just
đâu
look
có
at
cái
things
treo
like
đâu.
numbers of fetuses, so if I take the sweeps on one side and the other side, they're normal. If I sweep from side to side, I can only see one fetus. Actually, if I roll the probe round this way, I can see that the fetus is presenting cathalically and
Nhất là
the
những bạn
spine
có
is
phòng mạch
upwards.
riêng, các bạn giữ đồ giò nó bạn phải rất cẩn thận.
So that's most of the information that I perhaps once the lipo volume, I'm not going to measure that now. You can see eyeballing it, it looks normal. In the context of doing the Doppler assessment, it's probably of some value to us to know how big this fetus is in relation to normal ranges. So I'm going to just use the technique measuring inner to outer. Here I've used can you take the automatic measurements? So I've measured the head circumference here. I think it actually mistook what I did for the big, I know, the BPD there as well. Alright, you can see the cavum anteriorly, you can see the posterior horn of the lateral ventricle here. So I've used this technique of biometric assessment that's used a slightly higher level than we use if we use the traditional approach where we get the whole phalanite, and that's just so that I can see the lateral ventricle as well. So if I just come down to the abdomen, this is the abdomen here. I'm just doing these quickly, just so we get an idea of where we're at, so it's not perhaps absolutely ideal. You can see we're on roughly the 20th centile there. And if I just look at the femur here, again, I'm just doing this quite quickly just to make sure we've got some basic measurements in. So the femur was on the 50th centile. So if I just review those measurements for a moment, you can see that the head circumference is on the 50th centile, and you can see the femur is on the 50th centile. The abdomen a little bit smaller, 20th centile, but certainly not completely outside of normal limits. And here we're about 23 weeks gestation. So let's just move forwards a little bit to what we've been talking about this morning. So this is a loop of umbilical cord that we can see here. I might just take the zoom off for a moment. Let's just change the size of that. So if we just put some colour on here, that allows us to see the cord. We can see the two uterine arteries here. This is a free loop of cord. So if we wanted to measure the umbilical artery, okay, so you can see this is the waveform here. Sorry, let me just bring my arrow back. So fairly consistent waveforms coming across the chart. You can see occasionally we get one that's a little bit smaller. This is probably effective fetal breathing. So when we're doing measurements, we'll probably take the full waveforms that we can see in the middle of the chart here. If we just use auto trace on the software, we can just adjust that a little bit to make sure that we just use the parts of the waveform that we want. I just wanted to point out to you what I was talking about the sensitivity of this type of software. So here you can see I can change the sensitivity and change how it picks up those levels. That would be just an example of that. You can make these measurements by yourself if you want, so I can go to manual trace, and this is the Leonardo da Vinci method. You can see that we can draw it like this. Alternatively, can you put another one where you just sketch with colours? Manual, do you have other methods of manual tracing? Just this one? Right. Yeah, on some machines you can also just define the points of systole and diastole and do the measurements that way. So we've just looked at the umbilical artery Doppler. Let's just come back and look at that free loop again. So this is one umbilical artery here. Just use that automated software. So just notice the pulsatility index is about 0.99. What I just wanted to do, is just look at the other umbilical artery for comparison. And here you can see the pulsatility index of the other one is 1.26, so there is, it's not, I think, critically relevant, but just recognise that there is variation in the measures that you get in the two vessels. Also, if I just take the colour off for a minute. So this is where the cord inserts, you can see that. So if I just, for example, take one of the vessels as it bifurcates around the bladder. Just stop there, that's fine. So, I'll do this on manual trace. So you can see the shape is different. There's less systolic flow, for example, and the pulsatility index I'm getting is a bit higher when I do it at the beta end, 1.52. So really I'm just trying to demonstrate how when you do it in different sites or using different vessels, you get slightly different results. So you've got to think about how you incorporate that in your testing to make sure your testing is robust. Let's have another little think about this baby. So you see our baby looking up there. Uterine artery Doppler. So perhaps just show you my hand. So my hand's longitudinal section now. You can see the bladder just down there, fairly empty. Then our uterus, you can see the baby's head there in the midline. So if I move to the lateral side wall of the uterus, so as I come across, eventually you can see the uterine cavity disappearing. So this is the side wall here. And you can also see that as I come across, instead of staying in this longitudinal plane, I'm also rotating my hand round so that my hand is essentially running parallel to the inguinal ligament. So once I'm out in this sort of vicinity here, then I can start to look for vessels in the pelvic sidewall. So I've got two vessels that I can see here. This is the external iliac vessel here. This is the vessel that I'm interested in, the uterine artery here. Just going to make that a bit bigger. I'm actually just rotating my probe around a little bit, and I'm trying to basically improve the quality of the uterine artery Doppler. So you can see it now in a longer piece. I've tried to make it, or close the angle to make it as close to zero as possible. you can see that I actually achieve that better at this point, but ideally this is the point where I want to make measurements about 1 centimetre downstream from the external iliac vessel. Okay, so this is a nice reproducible waveform for the uterine artery Doppler. You can see the peak and systole, you can see the diastolic portion. There's no notching here. Again, I can use auto trace, so make sure I select the right vessel. I'm on the right hand side, so I'm using the auto trace function here, and then I'm just going to select the waveforms that I want to measure across. Again, just checking the sensitivity to make sure that I've got the appropriate waveform assessed. And then once I've finished on the right hand side, I take the colour off again. I move my hand back to the midline. If you actually look at my face, I'm now concentrating on the maternal abdomen, not on the screen. Once I've come to the midline, I can go in the other direction. And so I'm now on the left pelvic side wall. Again, I've opened the face of the probe. And I'm looking for those vessels again over on this side wall. I think this is probably my external iliac here. So you can see the waveform of the external iliac. It also, can I just turn the volume up a moment? Yeah, a little bit. So I just want you to hear the characteristic of the external iliac. Sounds completely different to the uterine artery Doppler. Alright, so now we've made sure we know where the external iliac is. So we can now look for the vessel crossing it. It's actually harder for me to do that on this side. I can't really see where it's crossing. The external iliac's coming across this sort of level here. This looks like my uterine here. But you can see that it's taking a slightly aberrant course here. Not uncommon. Again, if I just find the piece where it looks so let me just turn the volume up just so you can. So you can hear it's completely different sound quality to the external iliac. Then here now I'm on uterine artery again, now on the left hand side, make sure I choose left. I'm happy with the selection that the computer's made, so I just press enter. So I've now measured both my uterine arteries. So what we might just do is, can we just go to charts on the machine? Yeah, so do you have a graph at all of uterine artery? Do you have one? Yeah, do you have a chart of uterine artery? Yeah. Right, okay. Why don't you just, if you can pull it up, it would be useful, I think. We're just trying to see if we can find a chart on the machine, just to show where those measurements are.
Các bạn thấy là ngay cả những người mà dùng thường xuyên như vậy thì người ta cũng không thể nào nhớ trong đầu nổi cái giá trị thực bất thường như thế nào, người ta vẫn phải sử dụng cái việc là có một cái bảng reference. Ông ra đi tìm cái chuyện là các bạn có set sẵn trên máy thiết trạng để mà sau khi chúng ta đo xong là chúng ta biết được luôn là nó bình thường hay là nó trên bát phân định thứ 95 hay không. Bởi vì khi các bạn đo, các bạn nhớ set trước cái máy mình
if you set the graphs up on your machine, then you are able to just reflect on the charts and whether the measurements you've made from gestation perspective
online là các bạn lên trang FMF nó sẽ có cái cột bên
Okay, so I think I've covered most of the points of assessment for second and third trimester umbilical and uterine artery Doppler.
John, you need to tell us something about the gate, the sample gate.
Sample gate size, okay.
And also the position of the sample volume on the vessel.
Yeah.
And if you can also tell us, as far as the umbilical artery is concerned, should we sample it close to the placenta, close to the fetus, or the free loop of the cord, or does it matter at all?
Yeah, so I mean, we demonstrated before that you do get slightly different pulsatility indices in different places. So let me just come back and take this back to 2D grayscale. So I'm just going to stick to the umbilical artery Doppler for a moment. So let's just bring this up here. So you can see flow here through the umbilical artery. And here we've got a 2 millimeter gate. So you can see here with a 2 millimeter gate that we've got the artery represented. We're also picking up umbilical vein as well. Now, if I was to make that gate much smaller, so if I just put the pulse wave on and now bring the gate down to the smallest it will go is 0.7 millimeters, and just put the sample gate on here, you can see that what we tend to, I mean, it's moving around because the fetus is moving the cord. So that you can see what tends to happen is we either start to get one or the other vessel. So, for example, I've got a nice waveform of the artery. It's getting harder to reproduce the umbilical vein underneath. If I change the gate again, so let's make it 9 millimeters. Let's see if I can do this. Millimeters. What I'm trying to do is just see if I can get both uterine arteries on at the same time. But you can see all the background interference I'm getting. It's all a bit of a mess, really. So if you were to ask me what gate I would use, I would typically use a gate of about 2 to 3 millimeters for this examination. The other thing is just look at the quality of the trace as we change. So we're going backwards and forwards here. We're tending to basically fix the image when we're looking at the Doppler signal. So before, when we looked at the pulsatility index, we showed that the fetal end was higher. So I would typically use a 3 loop. The other place that you could use...
John, can you tell us 2 more things? One is about the angle and also about the PRF.
Okay, so let's do angle first. So now if I take this part of the cord here, you can see that the artery is running sort of across the screen. And so you can basically see that it looks as if the peak systolic velocity is quite low, about 25 centimeters per second. If I was to take the same bit of cord and just rotate the probe a little bit, and then find a portion where the, try again. So I find a portion where the artery is coming more vertical, like here. Stay still, baby. So perhaps not the best demonstration, but you can see certainly we had, I think, about 25 before. We're now about 35, just because of the difference in the angle. Now, the reality is that most of the time, for this vessel, we're using a ratio of systole to diastole. So if you don't angle correct, both of those will potentially be reduced together and by the same ratio. So it doesn't actually impact on the type of method that you use. But I think if you're just wanting to look at the quality of the waveform, it's important that you try to use a part of the waveform where it's essentially a vertical.
Các bạn thấy là trong khán phòng thì cũng có những cái câu hỏi, những cái lời
sorry, what was the other question you asked me?
The PRF.
Số các cái kỹ thuật, ví dụ như
Yes, so
làm sao
we
mà
have been playing around with the PRF as we've gone
cái
along.
góc đo của chúng ta nó có ảnh hưởng như thế nào, và ông đã là demo cho chúng ta thấy. Tất nhiên khi chúng ta quan tâm đến cái gọi là cái trở kháng chảy, thì khi chúng ta có một cái góc đo không chuẩn, không tốt lắm, thì cái tốc độ của tâm thu hay là tâm trương cùng giảm với một cái tỷ số như nhau, thì khi đó nó không thay đổi cái chỉ số trở kháng hay chỉ số xung. Tuy nhiên nếu đánh giá về mặt chất lượng của rõ ràng người ta dùng vô, người ta đánh giá là các bạn có hiểu về mặt kỹ thuật, các bạn có biết làm sao để có được một hình ảnh chuẩn nhất hay không.
So basically you change the PRF so that the waveform is not too small. And it is not too large, it's not hitting the top of the screen. So it should be well within the thing. Ideally around 2/3 of the screen. From the baseline upwards you divide the screen. More than 2/3 should be fine. That will be the correct PRF. The angle should be as minimum as is demonstrated, should be as minimum as possible. Okay, the 0 to 20 degrees is an ideal angle to get always. So whenever the vessel, you should not be 90 degrees to the flow. If you are 90 degrees to the flow, you will not get it. So close to the, most of the time you will be able to get it between 0 and 20 degrees. Similar, the same thing with the middle cerebral artery. Actually, if you can demonstrate the middle cerebral artery, it will be good, and that will tell us the way the angle is corrected. And,
okay, so if I come back to my traditional view of the baby's head, so I'm taking this sort of transverse section here, and so when I'm doing my normal biometry, I'm doing it at the level where I can see the cavum, septum, pellucidum anteriorly. I can see my posterior ventricle here. If I just sort of tweak that a little bit, you can see the thalamus here. If I just push the probe down the baby now, so just look anteriorly here, you can see the two orbits, and then this is basically the floor of the cranium here, the sphenoid bone. So my mid-cerebral arteries should be in this part here. Let me just... So I've actually just put the power Doppler on just to sort of demonstrate that you can see the whole of the circle of Willis here. So this is going to be the anterior cerebrals coming up here. This is the mid-cerebral here. These are going to be the posteriors here. So again, from a reference perspective, if you're looking at the mid-cerebral artery, for a start you want it moving vertically up the screen, so if the head's transverse, that's pretty easy, it's almost a vertical vessel. And second, you want to be about a centimetre, 5 millimetres to a centimetre away from the circle of Willis when you make the measurement. So if I just change things over a little bit. Okay, so that's my mid-cerebral artery there, coming up the screen. I can take it about a centimetre up. That gives me the waveform. So here you can see peak systole. You can see there's some flow in diastole. There's actually not so much flow in diastole, and that's normal. So the fetus that is compensating for hypoxia needs to open and dilate these vessels so that they can let more blood flow through the brain. So typically the normal vessel here, it's the opposite way round to the umbilical artery. The normal one, you have relatively low flow in diastole, and the abnormal one, you have high flow in diastole.
Okay, thank you, John. Any quick questions, because we are actually running out of time? The place where he just said, no? About 0.5 centimeters away from the origin. It's just show that. Yes? Hello. Okay, can you just show the angle correction as you can rotate the angle correction?
Yeah, I can actually do that on the...
You can see a small knob which rotates the angle. You need to align that along with the axis of the flow, and then the machine will tell you the angle. Okay.
So you can see as I rotate to correct the angle that it basically changes the axis in relation to the waveform that we've got here. And so you can see how once that angle corrected, essentially the peak systolic velocity is a little bit higher.
Yes.
So yeah, if we
0
just
to 20.
put the measures on as
0
well.
to 20.
So if you look on the screen of the peak systolic velocity
Can
at the
sample
top,
volume, yeah.
yeah.
Can
Now
you
if
show
I-
how to change the sample gate volume, that button which how to change the sample volume size? You use the trackball.
Yeah, you want me to do that in real time, yeah?
And the trackball will make it bigger or smaller.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, 11 measurement of uterine artery Doppler in the 11 to 13 week scan.
Yeah.
No, not at 11.